Welcome to the Golden One Center Coroner's Office, where tonight the cause of death for the Sacramento Kings was the three-point shot. The San Antonio Spurs knocked down 23 three-pointers, erasing all of the great work that the Kings did tonight. That's why, to me, this is the most deflating loss of the season. And we'll break it down right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all season long. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win that first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports anchor and reporter for ABC 10 News. The Sacramento Kings fall to 9-12 on the season, falling to the San Antonio Spurs 127-125. And like I said in the introduction, their death was by the three ball. There was so much from this game that was great for the Sacramento Kings. So much from this game that I should be positive about, talking about with a smile on my face here on Locked On Kings, because in so many areas, the Kings should have won this game tonight. And this goes beyond shoulda, woulda, coulda. Oh, if the referees didn't blow this whistle. Oh, if this mistake didn't happen, blah, blah, blah. No, it goes beyond that. The Kings dominated San Antonio in so many different ways. And as I list these, don't think this is an excuse. Don't think this is me trying to find a silver lining in all this, because this is why, to me, out of all the 12 losses this season so far, this one is the most deflating, more than the in-season NBA Cup loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves in overtime when Fox went for 60, right? More than the blown leads that the Kings have suffered so far this season. This loss is the most deflating. Why? Because the Kings did everything that they have made a focal point correctly. 52-28 domination points in the paint in favor of the Sacramento Kings. 18-7 domination second chance points for the Sacramento Kings. 24-4 domination in fast break points for the Sacramento Kings. 51-38 domination on the glass, and 25 points off of 16 Spurs turnovers, while the Kings, who have been really struggling taking care of the basketball, only turned the ball over 10 times, resulting in just 7 points for San Antonio. If I were to list all those numbers for you without the context of the final score, you would tell me, yeah, the Kings probably won that game by double digits, and they should have. The problem is all of that is erased. All of the great work you do is erased when you allow the Spurs to make 23 threes, shoot 23 of 46, 50% from three-point range. And for context, we already know that the Kings' three-point defense is really, really bad, and every team shoots lights out against Sacramento. But to really drive that point home, the 23 threes that the Spurs made tonight passes their previous season high of 22. Guess which team those 22 threes were against? You guessed it, the Sacramento Kings. That was earlier this season when the Kings lost to the Spurs in San Antonio. But wait, there's more. The Spurs have now only scored or hit 20 or more threes in a game twice. That means both times were against the Sacramento Kings. So against every other team that they have played so far this season, the Spurs have not surpassed 20 made threes. But in the 2 times they did it against the Kings, or in the 2 times they played the Kings, they did it both times. The Kings have a massive problem. This is the most deflating loss for me, 100%, because so much from this game is correct. So much of this game is right. So much of this game speaks to the identity and what Mike Brown was preaching about and the Kings coaches were preaching about and telling us about in training camp and in preseason and outworking your opponents, right? They followed up that loss in Portland the other night where they didn't do anything right, where they didn't make any of the extra effort in these many areas of focus. And tonight, the Kings not just won those areas, not by a handful of points, dominated in all of those areas. And they still lost the game because the Spurs scored 69 points from three-point range tonight. Man. You can live, and I can stomach the Kings losing to the Spurs because of Victor Wembanyama going off for a triple-double. And Wemby tonight, sensational, right? Victor Wembanyama, 34 points, 13 rebounds, 11 assists, had 5 of the Spurs three-pointers, also had 3 blocks and a steal. Like, Wemby is just incredible, right? Incredible. And this is year 2. Like, the league is in so much freaking trouble when Wemby gets to his prime. But, again, he only had 5 of the 23 threes. That's because the Spurs got 4 threes from Champagne, 3 threes from Chris Paul, 5 threes from Devin Vassell. Like, it wasn't just Wemby. Everybody, and I mean everybody, shot the 3-ball well against the Sacramento Kings tonight. What else is new? Because like I've told you, and I told you this last season, but it's especially prominent this season, every single team comes into games against the Sacramento Kings, whether it's inside the Golden One Center or not. Every team comes into games against the Sacramento Kings with as much three-point confidence as they could possibly have because they know they are going to get open looks. And that's what they got tonight. I'm not going to play this soundbite for you because I can't, because Malik drops an F-bomb in it. But I asked Malik after the game, and we'll talk about Malik in a second because he got his first start tonight finally. I asked Malik, like, hey, look, like there is an element of probably feeling unlucky. Like, how does every team shoot this well against us? We got to be unlucky. I'm sure there's an element of that, but when it keeps happening and it's happening for every team against you, it's probably a you problem, right? When everybody's doing it, you're the common denominator. And Malik basically said it can't be unlucky if they're effing wide open, right? And Malik's 100% right. Like, he's very blunt about it. The Kings give up way too many wide open threes. There's an issue with them defensively, schematically, sure, but also, as you're going to hear from Mike Brown here in a second, there's an issue with the effort that the Kings put into defending the three-point shot that every single team exploits and knows they can exploit going into a game. Three-point shooting is a skill, 100%, but it's all about confidence, right? The shimmy that you get from Steph Curry after he hits those threes, or the night that he hits, putting a game to bed, or when he dropped 50 in this building to help the Golden State Warriors eliminate the Sacramento Kings from the playoffs 2 years ago, right? He's an incredible three-point shooter and has an unbelievable skill set, but he also has an incredible confidence in his shooting ability. Every team has tremendous amounts of confidence from three-point range against the Sacramento Kings, and it shines through with everybody shooting the ball well against the Kings, it feels like. Here's Mike Brown's reaction to this after the game. I got the opportunity to ask Mike and highlight the areas of which the Kings dominated and the fact that the Kings still lost. And Mike gave a pretty long-worded answer, and I thought there were some interesting things in here that I wonder if you catch. Take a listen. Mike, continuing on with some of the numbers you just read there, not only did you have good games in the fast break and the paint, you dominated in those areas. So kind of a glass half full, glass half empty question. How encouraged are you to have that kind of success in those areas of focus, but you still end up losing the game when you have all that success?
No, Matt, like I said, that's why I mentioned it, because I don't want our guys to feel like we played terrible. There are small details that we have to embrace and embrace them for 48 minutes in order for us to compete and be where we want to be. And if you don't, like everybody just sees missed three that made threes. There's a big reason why there's made threes, and our guys know it. And it's not going to show up in the stat sheet. The only thing that's going to show up in the stat sheet is the made threes. And so embracing the aggression and the physicality of taking the three away is huge. It's not a stat, but it takes some work, and to do it play after play after play, that's not easy. But if you want to be great, I said this before the game, we have to have some consistency in what we do. It can't happen for 3/4 of the game or half the game or even 7/8 of the game. It's got to happen the whole game. So there are a lot of things to be excited about. I mean, even IJ, the way he played, he's playing in the G League 3 games ago. And you can see the difference having that athleticism, the speed, the length on the floor, what it does for our team. And he might be the one guy that I give a pass to for fouling in the backcourt, because he's still learning. And his fouls were trying to rebound, offensive rebound, and aggression going after loose balls. So there's some legitimacy to what he tried to do. But he's still got to be smart enough to handle it the right way if he's going to be on the floor. So a lot of encouraging things, but it's about the details and how well and how much we embrace them, Matt.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by BetterHelp. It's the holiday season, and we all love the holiday season, right? Or at least most of us do. Maybe some of you out there don't, and I understand why. But the holiday season at least stands for a lot of great things. Stands for happiness, time with family, gift giving, being thankful, right? So many good things that we associate the holiday time with. But if we're being honest, too, the holidays can also be a really, really tough time for people who are struggling with mental illness, right? Feeling like they're supposed to be happy, but they're not for some reason. Or maybe they're away from loved ones and don't get that connection that they crave. Or whatever the case may be, spending Christmas alone. Whatever it is, right? Mental health at this time of the year is so important and often goes unlooked or unchecked because we're just expected to be happy and expected to be joyous at this time of year. If you're going through struggles during this holiday season, if you're going through struggles at any time in life, therapy is a must for everybody. And I don't mean just those going through the deepest and darkest of struggles and having the heaviest of baggage that life throws at you, right? Everybody should see a therapist at some point in their life. Everybody should seek that professional help and take care of their mental health. And I'm speaking from experience because I didn't think my problems were big enough for a therapist either. I've been seeing my therapist, TJ, since COVID was going on, and it has quite literally changed my life. If you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire. You'll get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. I actually want to go back and listen to this bite again. I'm going to do it on my own time. I encourage you to do so as well. But I thought it was really interesting that Mike talks about so much of three-point defense does not show up in the box score, right? And people are going to look at this box score and are going to see the amount of made threes and how that erases all the other good stuff that the Sacramento Kings did, those made threes for the Spurs. But he talks about the effort that it takes to defend the three-point shot and to give your all on a closeout and to make three-point shooting as difficult as possible, or at the very least to try and disrupt the confidence of three-point shooters against the Kings. And it sounds like, while Mike isn't directly calling his team out, it sounds like what he's saying is this team is not willing consistently enough to go the extra effort and give 110% to defend the three-point shot like they should. Now, at different times in this press conference, too, after the game, Mike did take ownership of, like, maybe I have to do things different schematically, but ultimately he said it's not scheme-wise that's the problem, or not the entire problem. It's that the Kings aren't willing to put in the 110% effort on closeouts or hard rotations or whatever the case may be. They're not willing to do it all in order to maximize their three-point defensive potential. That's why they're getting torn apart, and that's why teams are so confident against them from three-point range. I thought those comments from Mike were interesting. Again, you might interpret that as Mike is saying it's not my fault, it's their fault. I don't take that it that way at all. Mike is calling it like he sees it. And if this team is not giving enough in that area, he certainly has to look at why that is and who's not doing it. And maybe they're not doing it because of some other reason. Maybe they're not doing it because of the switch heavy or trying to cut off driving to the basket or pack the paint or whatever. So maybe he can change some things schematically. But if it really comes down to just not working hard enough on the perimeter, that would be a tough pill to swallow. It's about damn time that Malik Monk started for the Sacramento Kings. His first start. We're in year 3, including him returning on a new contract with the Sacramento Kings. And I guess it took the Kings being an absolute dumpster fire. Not really. That's a little harsh. But it took the Kings severely underperforming to start the season for Mike Brown to finally make the move that we've been calling for. Starting Malik Monk at the 2-guard spot. And you know what? It was, 1, a pleasant surprise. And 2, it worked. Right? Tonight, Malik Monk, 19 points, 7 of 14 from the field, 5 of 10 from three-point range, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, 1 block. Now, you might be saying, Matt, how can you say it worked? The Sacramento Kings lost the game. I don't think the Kings lost the game because Malik Monk was starting. And yes, that fourth quarter where the Kings kind of fell apart, Malik Monk was on the floor. He would have been on the floor no matter what, even if he was coming off the bench. But the Sacramento Kings scored 42 freaking points in the first quarter. The Sacramento Kings built a 17-point lead on the back of Malik Monk being a part of that starting lineup and setting the tone for the Kings. Now, we know how it played out, of course. I'm not blaming Malik for that, although he's partly to blame because he's part of the Kings' defensive issues from three-point range. But there was nothing about tonight's game and the way that the Kings play when Malik was on the floor that suggested that this isn't working, that this was a bad idea. It was a bad move. The Kings, for sure, did not lose this game because Malik Monk was in the starting lineup. And look, I know there was an offensive drop-off in terms of scoring from the second unit because Malik wasn't a part of the second unit. I don't care. Because the second unit, when Malik Monk isn't there, we know isn't good anyway. They've proven it. And plus, they're missing Trey Lyles, who's out with injury. Kevin Huerter's out with injury. And who knows what version of Kevin Huerter's going to come back and if it's going to work off the bench or not. We have no idea. But I'm done caring about how the second unit plays when making a decision about whether or not to start Malik Monk, because Malik is one of the best 3 or 4 players on this Kings team. He got the opportunity tonight, and he excelled. He played fantastic. And while the second unit statistically, I guess, wasn't as good scoring the basketball, Mike Brown staggers his lineup so much anyway that it wasn't like there was a full 5 bench unit on the floor at all times where Malik or De'Aaron or DeMar or somebody wasn't out there with them. So there's nothing about this game that suggests that Malik Monk should not be a starter going forward. Mike Brown, after the game, didn't directly say, I'm going to continue to start Malik Monk, but essentially he said, like, Malik Monk is going to start going forward, and he said maybe he'll change it up in a handful of games if he feels the need to, but he felt like he had to do something. He had to make a change, and this was the best change that he could make. Thank God he made it. I wish Malik Monk won so I could just do victory laps about it, but even with the loss, I'm very, very, very happy to see Malik Monk in the starting lineup. Let's hear from Malik talking about finally getting the opportunity to start.
Malik, you get your first start in a Kings uniform here. Bittersweet for it to end this way?
Yeah, it's terrible. Yeah, definitely wanted to win, but thankful I got my first start here. Took me 3 years, but I'm here now, so hopefully it could continue.
Well, you mentioned a minute ago that you know hopefully it continues in being in that starting line. What did you kind of find out about it, and did it, because you hadn't started in your 3 years here, how much did it take you by surprise?
It didn't. I think I started 58 games for the Lakers. I was used to it. Yeah, so I was just waiting for the moment. Oh, now. Yep. I was happy because it finally happened, of course. And I think we started great with energy and kept it up for a little bit. But seems like we can't play 48 minutes, but that's on us to figure it out.
All right, now let's talk about where this game unraveled. And it's going to, unfortunately, primarily focus on Keon Ellis, who was bumped out of the starting lineup for Malik Monk and is taking on a major responsibility off the bench. Keon tonight definitely did not play near his best. He wasn't awful. He was clearly very frustrated at times with the officiating. And there were some touch fouls called by this officiating crew that that drove me crazy. CP3 seems to just be a master at getting touch fouls called against him, and apparently Victor Wembanyama can knee De'Aaron Fox in the side on an illegal screen, but it's Domantas Sabonis' fault. But then the Kings have to use one of their reviews on it. Thank God that call did not stand. It got overturned, but the whole call that should have been there in the first place was Victor Wembanyama kneeing Fox in the side. They just let that go, I guess. There were some bad calls about in this game. I'm not blaming the officiating for why the Sacramento Kings lost this game. But Keon Ellis started the unraveling at the very end of the third quarter, right? And the Kings were up, I think, 5 points or something at this point. 5 points or around that, maybe 4 points, whatever. Kings get a stop, they get out in transition, where they've been dominant all game long. Keon Ellis has a one-on-one opportunity, but he also has, and I don't remember who it was, might have been Keegan Murray, might have been Malik Monk. I genuinely don't remember who it is, but it's a staple of Mike Brown's offense to, in transition, somebody runs to the corner. The Kings had a man pretty much wide open in the corner for Keon to kick to, and he didn't. He decided to try and go up strong, go right to the basket. Ends up turning the ball over. You can go back and look at it. He probably was fouled, didn't get the call. The ball also may have gone off of San Antonio. Regardless, he gets a turnover. So there's an opportunity for points there at the end of the quarter to give yourself momentum that you failed on. Then the Spurs inbound the ball, and Keon Ellis, clearly in frustration, just is called for a stupid foul. A foul like in the paint on the other side of the floor. Kings are in the penalty. Spurs go back to the other end of the floor, shoot 2 free throws. You give them 2 free points at the end of the third quarter. Guess how many points the Sacramento Kings lost by tonight? 2 points. Now, it's totally unfair. It's totally unfair to go, if that foul doesn't happen, the Kings win this game. Because there's a whole 12 other minutes of context in the fourth quarter. But those are things you focus on when you give away free points. NBA teams are going to make you pay for it. You gave away 2 free points there at the end of the third quarter, and you lost a game by 2 points. It's hard not to look at that, hard not to focus on that. And then, again, that kind of started a spillover of bad momentum into the fourth quarter because the Sacramento Kings got in foul trouble in the fourth quarter very quickly. The Kings were in the penalty with 9 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. That killed Sacramento, right? That killed Sacramento. The Spurs were able to exploit that, get to the foul line, and help secure the game and win the game there at the foul line. Plus, the Kings couldn't play as physically as they wanted because they were 1 in foul trouble, and 2, Domantas Sabonis had 5 fouls again in the fourth quarter. That's been a problem of his so far. So that was the beginning of the end, and I'm not the only one saying that because Mike Brown pointed that out post-game too. Again, unfortunately, the spotlight falls on Keon Ellis for that and him kind of starting that. I'm not going to... Dude doesn't deserve to be ripped to shreds or crucified about it. It's just something to pay attention to. Hopefully it's a learning moment for him. And it's just one of those things. Add it to the list of things so far this season that we look back on and just go, damn, man. Just another way that the Kings kind of shot themselves in the foot. Like I said at the top of the show, today's episode of Locked On Kings is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything that you need to place live bets in the NFL, the NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, doesn't matter. All of those sports, all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Another night, another impressive performance by Isaac Jones. I really like this young man. Tonight, 12 points, 5 of 7 shooting from the field, 4 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 1 block. Spent a lot of his time going at and defending Victor Wembanyama. Did about as good as you could hope, especially from a two-way rookie. Right? He was aggressive. He, in the third quarter, had that unbelievable come-out-of-nowhere tip dunk, and then he had another slam a couple of possessions later. He's just an energizer, right? And I talked about this, I think, on the last episode of Locked On Kings. He's a guy that plays free. I think I talked about this actually after the Minnesota game. He doesn't think. He just plays, right? He just reacts to what's in front of him, hustles, plays with energy, making the most out of his opportunity, and it's paying off on the floor. Isaac Jones has, and this is probably more of a negative for the Kings than it is a positive for Isaac, but Isaac Jones has been arguably top 2, top 3 most consistent player for the Kings off the bench this season. Again, that's probably not great for the Kings, but it's good for Isaac, making the most of his opportunity. Look, he's getting out there because Trey Lyles is hurt. He's also getting out there because Kevin Huerter is hurt. Colby Jones is getting minutes right now in his second season because Kevin Huerter is out and Kevin Huerter is hurt. But look at how Isaac Jones is playing and look at how Colby Jones is playing, right? And I'm not trying to bash on Colby or anything like that, but one is making the most out of the opportunity and the other isn't. And the one that is the rookie who's never played in the NBA before and doesn't even have a full NBA contract. And hey, maybe that's the thing, right? Last year, Keon Ellis earned his first full NBA contract. Maybe if you're a two-way player, you just want to play for the Sacramento Kings because the Kings are going to give you a fair shot. Mike Brown is going to give you a fair shot, and you have to be ready to go and ready to attack it. Isaac Jones is. And now, if this continues, unless the Kings either figure their second unit out, get more consistency from that unit when they get back and get healthy, or Monty McNair makes a move, I could see a scenario where the Kings have to convert Isaac Jones to a full NBA contract because by the two-way rules, you can suit up for 50 games. I have no idea how many Isaac Jones is suited up for. Probably not all of the, 21? Probably not all the 21 games that the Kings have played so far. But a decent amount, a decent chunk. So if Isaac Jones keeps playing that way and the Kings keep requiring his size and athleticism off the bench, it could happen. And that'd be pretty interesting 2 years in a row that the Sacramento Kings convert a two-way player to a full contract because they're getting important rotational minutes. DeMar DeRozan made his return for the Kings tonight after dealing with back inflammation. He missed the 2 road games that the Kings just returned home from. He actually didn't even travel with the team, from what I understand. And tonight he was really good. 28 points, 10 of 20 shooting from the field, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals. The problem is 18 of those points that he scored were in the first half. I say that's a problem because while he was cooking in the first quarter and helped the Kings get going and helped the Kings get off to that 42-point first quarter, he didn't really score again until the fourth quarter. So there was a pretty significant drop-off. Now, during that time, other guys kind of sort of got going, and what was nice is offensively, the Sacramento Kings never had that dreadful quarter. I mean, they scored only 23 points in the second quarter. It wasn't an ice-cold quarter like we've seen the Kings have far too many times this season where they're in the teens and struggling to be in the teens, right? But DeMar kind of slowed down in the second half, and the Spurs were able to, and the Kings weren't able to maintain their lead, and the Spurs were able to kind of close the gap and then take a lead at one time in the third quarter before DeMar got going in the fourth quarter again. I liked it on offense. It didn't feel like tonight, I could be wrong, I'll have to go back and watch it a little bit more, but it didn't feel like watching the game that the ball was stopping or slowing down because DeMar was out there. He was definitely attacking Harrison Barnes. Great to see HB return tonight. He got a cool tribute video and a good ovation from Kings fans. But he was going after HB in the post and having a lot of success there. So I don't really have too much of a problem with how DeMar DeRozan played, and I don't feel like he slowed down the Kings offense or negatively impacted the Kings offense in any kind of way. I do still want the Kings to get more of that attack-minded Fox than they got tonight. And look, Fox still had a solid stat line, 23 points, 9 of 23 from the field, so the shooting percentage is not great. 3 of 8 from three-point range, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, a couple of steals, a block shot, right? So Fox still had a pretty solid game, but it wasn't, again, it's still not that attack-minded, amazing version of Fox, minus the 60 points and the 49 points. It's still not that version of Fox that we saw the Kings really rely on when DeMar DeRozan was out a couple of weeks ago. So I still want to see if the Kings can get that version of Fox while DeMar is out there with him. I will say this. I'm really happy with the starting lineup change. I do think it's going to pay off for the Sacramento Kings, and it already has in some ways tonight. Hopefully there's more wins actually attached to it in the near future, although the Kings have tough games coming up, man. The Houston Rockets are no joke. They're going to play the Kings hard. They've beaten the Kings. They blew out the Kings multiple times last season. So the Houston Rockets are coming into Sacramento on Tuesday and ready to handle their business. Then you got the Memphis Grizzlies after that, who of course are having a resurgence now that they're healthy and John Morant is back. So look, Kings could lose 3 in a row again here. It's a very good chance. And if this starting lineup is not ultimately helping the Sacramento Kings produce more wins, the next move doesn't exist on this roster. It doesn't. The next move is Monty picking up the phone and making a trade. And at this rate, I don't think he can wait till the trade deadline. And I don't know if this is going to continue. I don't know if, to me, if this starting lineup is not working, nothing on this roster is going to work. So hopefully this starting lineup can start to actually produce some wins for the Kings now that Malik is hopefully a permanent starting two here in Sacramento. All right, let me hear your thoughts on this game. How you feeling? Your thoughts on Malik starting, your thoughts on the three-point defense. Let it fly at MattGeorgeSack on Twitter. Hit me up. Email me, mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. Or if you're watching on YouTube, feel free to get going in the YouTube comment section down below. Appreciate your support. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.